Hmm. Uh-huh.
Hi everyone, I'm with Jon Fidler today, head of Modla, big player in the London rapid prototyping community, and he's here to share his thoughts on what rapid prototyping can do for you guys and when it's appropriate and when it might not be as appropriate. So, welcome Jon. Why don't you tell us a bit about rapid prototyping, 3D printing, additive manufacturing, whatever you call it.
Well, 3D printing, now is a word I like to refer to it as actually rapid prototyping from when I was doing my days of engineering about 10 years ago when I first came across the processes. First, as I talked about, used within that world of engineering, and now very much become front page news with all the talk going on within creative industries about the technologies and how they can be used. So recently I've developed and set up my company Modla, who specialise in the use of 3D printing and rapid prototyping to work with many creative consultancies within the area of fashion, product design, architecture and arts to produce different objects or different things dependent on our clients' briefs. So we're very much at the moment trying to use it in areas that it wasn't first intended for, which has all been quite experimental, but at the same time interesting.
Okay. And what are the main sort of technologies out there as far as different ways of doing 3D printing?
So within 3D printing at the moment, there's a lot of influx of new machines coming out. Now I very much tend to rate these machines as I have high-end machines that we tend to use a lot on low-end machines, and I think this is what people really need to kind of grasp an understanding about, because with things you can produce stuff that's otherwise impossible to produce on the high-end machines, whereas with these low-end machines generally it wouldn't be possible. But there's also a whole different kind of variety of machines that you can get with rapid prototyping that produce in a number of different materials. So we can produce stuff in plastics, metals. Also there is the idea that you can use these techniques with other manufacturing methods, so we can then produce stuff in metals and ceramics as well, which is quite very interesting.
And I've seen these little MakerBots and Ultimakers on Amazon, and people say you can use them to print out whatever you need at home. Are these going to be the future of producing everything you need by yourself and not having to buy anything anymore?
I think that's a very misconception that the press have tend to have got hold of. Generally, if we think about our everyday products, they're made of a variety of different materials. So the thing about these machines are that they just produce in one type of material. So if it's a case of you want one of your mobile phone produced in one material, then I don't actually see this as being feasible at the moment. But there in itself, these are great tools for people being able to kind of explore the technologies, because they're relatively cheap, and it's great for a hobbyist or maybe a jewellery designer to them to buy one and to be able to just experiment with them and have more of an understanding therefore for the technologies.
Okay, so for companies that actually want to get value out of decreasing their experimentation time or improving their ability to visualize what things are going to look at, what's actually more important for the rapid prototyping process?
Well, the most important thing is obviously the 3D software side. So with 3D printing, the way it works is, first of all, we have to produce our 3D file, and that 3D file is then sent to the machine. So just like we would have with traditional kind of, if we were producing a Word document and then wanted to print it, we'd have to produce the Word document first. And that's all done in a software called 3D CAD, computer-aided design software, where it allows us to basically draw up and create our 3D file and add dimensions and see what it's like. But the thing about these softwares, they can be expensive, and it's all about choosing the correct software dependent on the person's requirements. So somebody from fashion, for instance, will use a different software compared to somebody from an area of engineering, or somebody from architecture will use therefore something like AutoCAD to produce their ideas and designs. But the great thing is, though, once we've got that 3D file, we can use it for 3D printing, but first of all we can use it for rendering, so we can apply materials in a virtual world and see what our object's going to look like, so we can see what it looks like in metal before kind of putting it through the printer. And also, once we've got that file, we can if we printed something, for instance, if we're an engineer and we're testing out something that comes together and works, if that doesn't work, then we can go back and we can change the file over again to then show, to then reiterate the design and print it off, and then work through that kind of process, and that helps us as designers to speed up our workflows and improve quality of design.
And then finally, if companies want to reduce the amount of time that it takes them to experiment, what's your advice on them trying to go out and get one of these machines compared to maybe getting someone to help them through the process first?
I think it's these processes can be expensive, and I think very much it's very important if first using them to first of all get consultancy or take the advice of somebody who's had experience. I mean, necessarily there might not be a need for you actually buying one of these machines. I've had it in the past where people have gone, yeah, we bought one and it's just gathering up dust in the back of the cupboard because necessarily the machine they bought isn't suitable for what they wanted to do. But I mean, my advice would be to kind of, first of all, if you're wanting to kind of implement these techniques, would be to get somebody's advice, say if somebody's worked in the area of engineering or worked with the software itself, and then they can therefore consult and give you advice on what's the best software for you, or what's the best machine to use. Necessarily do you need to buy a machine? Because there's a lot of companies out there who provide bureau services and provide what I've called the higher end machines that can cost £250,000, but then can produce much more complex kind of objects in a variety of different materials. So necessarily what you might want to do at your company is implement the 3D design software side of things and then outsource everything, which is what we tend to do at Modla. As I said, because the technologies can be very expensive, and necessarily we just want to stay and use these technologies for the design side to help us with our final product.
Right, thank you very much.
No problem, thank you.